2023 NFL Wildcard Preview. Now, we actually have quite a weekend ahead of us with the 6 games. 2 on Saturday, 3 Sunday, 1 Monday. There are a lot of stories coming into this wildcard weekend. You have on Saturday, Tyreek Hill going to Kansas City, faces old team, the Chiefs. Then on Sunday, you have Mike McCarthy coaching against his old team, the Green Bay Packers, where he did win a Super Bowl, like Tyreek Hill won a Super Bowl with the Chiefs. Of course, Mike McCarthy was the head coach the last time the Packers won the Super Bowl. It's not that Aaron Rodgers is the quarterback. That would really spice it up. Yeah, it's still a big game for him. And then in the evening Sunday, you have Matthew Stafford returning to Detroit. Won a Super Bowl with the Rams, and Jared Goff facing the team that drafted him, the Rams. A total 6 games. And before we get into the games, I want to talk about who's facing the most pressure coming into the playoffs. I'm going to include the 1 seeds in this too. And I do think it's the top seeds in each conference. I was just listening to an interview with Peter King, and I have great respect for Peter King, but I disagreed with something he said. He chose in the AFC the Ravens. I agree on that. Why? Because Lamar Jackson stayed healthy, and he's struggled to stay healthy the last couple years. This year, he's been healthy. He's been great. He'll most likely be the MVP. He won All-Pro, or was selected All-Pro on the first team that was announced yesterday. So he's had a great season without putting up, massive passing yards. That he's healthy. He's in his, what I consider probably the end of his prime, because he's not going to run like this too many more seasons. 1-2 more seasons maybe at the most. So this is the best we're going to see Lamar Jackson, because he's not the quarterback who's going to be the polished pocket passer. It's a combination of his running and that he passes well enough. But if you take away his legs, he is not going to carve defenses up with his arm. So that's why the Ravens need to win now. But then the one I disagree with, he said in the NFC, it was the Cowboys. And from a national standpoint, yes, the Cowboys get the most attention. The Cowboys haven't won in many, many years. But come on, we're getting so much of that. It's the 49ers. And I know I'm a 49ers fan. And this isn't just a bias. It isn't just favoritism. It isn't just about being a fan. The 49ers have been right there for so many years, unlike the Cowboys. I can go back to the Harbaugh years. 3 NFC, at least making it to the NFC Championship 3 years in a row. You lose the overtime game against the Giants. You lose the Super Bowl against the Ravens. You lose the conference championship against the Seahawks. 11, 12, 13. And then the Shanahan years. The Super Bowl, up by 10 in the fourth quarter. You lose that in 19. 21, you had a 10-point lead in the fourth quarter in the championship game against the Rams. You somehow lose that game to a team you owned on a neutral site field. And then last year, you're in the championship game. Again, your quarterback gets hurt in the start of the game and it all falls apart. And then this year, you're the first seed. The Cowboys don't even come close to that. I mean, they have not come close to a Super Bowl. They haven't even reached a championship game. When was the last time they were the first seed? I can at least say the 49ers, we were the first seed in 19. We're the first seed this year. We've been to Super Bowls. Man, The pressure is on. And then all the trades, the signings to get to this point. Tremendous pressure. And I believe of all the teams, there is more pressure on the 49ers than even on the Ravens. The Ravens won a Super Bowl in 2012. Different team. It wasn't a short time ago, but now it's more than 10 years ago. And they beat the 49ers. And I'm going to power rank the top, let's say the top 3 teams in each conference. AFC, Ravens 1. I'd go Browns 2. Bills 3. That's my top 3, and it's still hard to say that the Chiefs aren't in the top 3 with Patrick Mahomes and the fact that they are the reigning Super Bowl champions and being in the conference championship game for the last 5 seasons. 18, 19, 20, 21, 22. But they are looking on from the outside. They're not on the inside. In the NFC, it's 49ers. 1. Cowboys, I'll give that to you. They're number 2. And then there's the question about who's number 3, as the NFC looks weak. And it is weaker. Who is that third team? It's not the Buccaneers. It's certainly not the Eagles. So that's between the Packers, the Rams, and the Lions. I'd go Rams. Rams number 3 right now as the best team in the NFC, and you can make some strong points why. They have a quarterback who's already won a Super Bowl. They have Aaron Donald, though I don't think he's quite what he was, but he is an all-time great defensive lineman. He's a top 5 defensive lineman of all time. That's how great he's been in his career. Still Pro Bowl, still All-Pro, and worthy of it. And then McVay. McVay is an excellent coach. So I would go with that. Rams is the 3rd best team in the NFC. And then let me talk about the 7 teams here and having 7 teams in each conference. Sure, I understand why there's a 7 team. I still don't like it. I'm going to complain about it. The NFL is very happy and pleased with how it turned out because they got 2 of their legacy teams in with the 7th team. In the NFC, you get the Packers in. So all the history of the Packers, first team to win the Super Bowl, the NFL championships, title town. It's very good for the NFL that Green Bay gets in the playoffs. And I do feel that the Packers could at least make some noise here. The Steelers, on the other hand, they are the Pittsburgh Steelers, and they're only one of 2 franchises to win 6 Super Bowls, and they have the history they do of winning in the Super Bowl era and all the great coaches and players. Arguably the greatest franchise in the Super Bowl era, at least. So they get those 2 in, so it's a major victory for the NFL. I still don't like it. And when you have the 7th team in, usually the 7th team doesn't do anything. Usually the 7th team is kind of an embarrassment. The 7th team in each conference, I believe, has not managed to win these couple years. There has been a 7th team a game and move on to the divisional round. And I'm more about quality football. A lot of people love Wild Card Weekend. I think this is better than most Wild Card rounds in recent years. I'm more of a divisional guy. I say it every year. I mean, I've been doing these shows for 10 plus years, and I say it every single season. I'm all about the divisional round because you weed out the bad teams and you have the best 8 teams, the final 8 teams left. You don't have 14 teams. And to me, 12, and even some of the 6 seeds in many years aren't worthy of being playoff teams. And the 17th week, that's a whole nother conversation. The 17th week, or I should say the 17th game, is so unnecessary. And of course, it's just a money grab. I mean, when you have these teams that are just sitting it out and not playing, you have multiple teams doing that. And I guess that's the reward of taking care of your business through 16 games in 17 weeks. Okay, it's like you get a double bye. But it's not good from a fan perspective. And, a team like the Rams, they didn't even have double-digit wins, and because they already locked up their place in the playoffs, with 9 wins, can sit their starting quarterback. That's terrible. 9 wins, saying, oh, well, we've done our job with potentially a 9-8 season. If we lose this game, yeah, they won the last game. They end up being 10-7 instead of 9-8, but a 9-7 team can just sit their guys. That's not good for the sport. Okay, enough of that. Let's get into the games themselves. We got 2 games today. First game, in many ways, is actually the one I'm most interested in. This Texans-Browns game in Houston. And yes, the Texans are back to having that early spot, right? The moment that the Texans were in and they're a division winner, you're like, yep, that first game is going to be in Houston. And I just don't like indoor football. I'm very old school, very old fashioned, and I love outdoor football. Do I love conditions that are unplayable? And do I want to see the Ice Bowl? Do I want to see the Fog Bowl that they had in Chicago? No, I don't want to see weather that destroys the quality of play and it's almost unplayable. No, but I do want to see some elements. I do want to see cold, and I want to see football how it's meant to be played, and that's outdoors. So I do get a little discouraged and wish more of these games were outdoors. I believe it's 3-3 this weekend. You have Houston, Dallas, and Detroit inside, and then outside there is Kansas City. We'll get to that. Kansas City, Buffalo, and Tampa Bay. But on to the game. The Texans, great story. C.J. Stroud, way ahead of schedule. They've had a great season. And now you have the Browns coming in. And I said when I was ranking these teams, the Browns to me are the second best team in the AFC, which is incredible considering they lost Watson, they lost Chubb. You lose your starting quarterback, you lose your number 1 running back, who's an excellent running back, and you won as many games as they did. They're the number 1, and they would have won the division in many cases if it wasn't for the Ravens. They bring Joe Flacco in, and this is a tough football team. You have a very experienced quarterback, a Super Bowl winning quarterback. I think a quarterback that doesn't get enough credit for what he did in 2012. And it's over 10 years later. He's 38 years old. Yet they plugged him in, and for the most part, he played very well. And for the most part, he needs to manage the game. But if you know Joe Flacco, it's not only managing the game. He can still throw it, and he can still get the ball down the field. He always had a great arm, and he's a quarterback that knows how to win in the playoffs, and he knows how to win on the road, as he did a lot of winning on the road throughout his career with the Ravens. And if you actually compare the way Lamar's played versus Flacco, Flacco had far greater success from the beginning playing in the playoffs versus Lamar Jackson. Very good on the road. Not that he is the player Lamar was, not that, or is, and it's not that he was always, carrying the team. You could say he was a little bit more of a game manager, and I'm sorry to use that so much, but Flacco gets it done, and he's showing he still can get it done. These teams played each other not long ago in the regular season. You could throw that game out because Stroud didn't even play. I don't think there's much you can carry over from that game, but just to come out and say it, because I'm not going to pick apart all these games. They're just wild card games in the most detail. But I like the Browns. I do like the Browns on the road. I think it's going to be a very entertaining game because Stroud is such a sensational rookie. And you have to give so much credit to D'Amico Ryans. But for me, the season will end. I think it's going to be a competitive game. It's going to be a really interesting game because you have the contrast between this young rookie quarterback and you have Flacco. But the Browns are a very physical team. They were a team that was able to get some rest for their players. And they're a good defensive team. They had some weeks that they weren't as sharp on defense. They gave a lot of points, but this is a tough defensive team. And Stroud is going to have to get rid of the ball fast because of Garrett and Zadarius Smith. And the Browns just play great defense. And as good as Stroud is, and he'll make plays, I see some rookie moments. I see him being under the pressure of winning, yes, but also he's going to be under the pressure of the Browns' pass rush. And it will force him into a mistake or two. And on the Browns side of the ball, if they're just able to run the ball somewhat effectively, and then Flacco is able to move the chains, I think that's going to be good enough on the road. So I'm going with the better defensive team, a team that can travel, and a very experienced quarterback who's got it done in Joe Flacco. And he's got weapons, too. I mean, he's got weapons at receiver. He's got weapons at tight end. Browns play football the right way. And you don't want to face the Browns. I mean, you don't really want to face the Texans because they're a young, confident team, and the pressure is not on them because they're ahead of schedule. But the Browns aren't supposed to be here either with all the injuries they've had. And didn't even talk about Deshaun Watson and what that would have looked like. But the Browns are better off with Joe Flacco. I mean, Watson just hasn't been the same quarterback since he's come back the last few years. Not the same quarterback, and with everything that happened, if they could move on, they would move on from him. But I like the Browns I don't see them winning by double digits on the road, but I'll take them by a solid touchdown. I can see this being a little lower scoring game, so 24-17, Browns to advance. Our evening game, okay, here's weather. And, I was looking at the reports. I didn't actually check the weather report, but it's going to be extreme cold in Kansas City. And it's going to be a game that is going to be the coldest by far of the weekend. I think the high in Kansas City for the day was no higher than 9 or 10 degrees. So by game time, you're going to be looking for a game that's going to be close to 0. Last that I checked. With all the problems that the Chiefs have, I like the Chiefs in this one because Miami's the warm weather team. Miami has their injuries. We don't know about Mostert. We don't know about Waddle playing. They're a finesse team. They're not a power running team. And the Chiefs, with all their problems, the Chiefs have a good defense. And right now they have a better defense than the Dolphins. And they still have Patrick Mahomes. They have all the problems they have on offense, yeah, but they still have Patrick Mahomes. And I like him playing better than Tua in this freezing cold game, and it's at home for Kansas City. I mean, the Dolphins blew it. They have some excuses because of the injuries and how many injuries they have on defense versus a team like the Eagles. But this was a team that was and should have been the number 2 seed. If this was in Miami, I would feel very differently, and I would pick the Dolphins. But the fact that it's going to be so cold, and they have guys coming off an injury, and like I said, they're not a power running team. I love Mostert and Achane. They're so good. I just don't see them being super effective in a game like this. And of the 2 quarterbacks, I think Mahomes is going to make less mistakes than Tagovailoa. I have to go with the Chiefs. I'd like to see the Dolphins win. I see the Chiefs still advancing and winning a game in the wild card round and then losing in the divisional round. You know, Mahomes will do little things, and there is still some of the Mahomes magic. It's just really unfortunate for the Dolphins that it's going to be this cold, and it's going to slow them down. It's going to slow their offense down, and their defense is just so decimated on the defensive line. I mean, let's just say if there were even good conditions, could they even get any pressure on the quarterback at this point? How much pressure can they get on the quarterback? I mean, if it was a warm game too, in Miami, you know, Tua is so good at getting the ball out and getting it out fast. But it seems like, you know, when you're watching the Bills game and some of these others, he's bombing down the field. He locks onto his receivers and he sort of telegraphs it. And I've noticed the same thing with Jalen Hurts. It's like on those more like intermediate passes, he's excellent at making that first read and getting it out quickly where the defense can hardly react to that speed that the Dolphins have. So I like the Chiefs. I think they'll be able to run the ball when they need to. I mean, the Dolphins want to keep it close. Even though they're a team that scores a lot, if they can just keep it close, not that the Chiefs are going to be running away with it like they used to. I just don't think they have the style of football. They don't play the style of football that's good in a game like this. So I'll take the Chiefs in a low-scoring game. 17-14, 17-13. And the Dolphins could go in there and win. And then there's the whole Peacock thing. I mean, I don't even know myself if I'm going to watch this game. I'd love to. But it is, you know, if you're putting in perspective, it's like, you know, I'm paying for a wild card game. A wild card game. It's not my team. It's a wild card game. And it does bother a lot of people. It does bother me too when you have Mahomes and you have the Dolphins. You think you know, the game that should have been this Peacock game was the Eagles and Buccaneers. Because that's the lousy game of the weekend. Okay, on to Sunday. Steelers and Bills. I can just say this and say it fast. Bills win. The only thing that may keep this closer is that the Bills turn it over. And Josh Allen turns it over. I just don't see any way that the Steelers are going to win this. You know, their best player, TJ Watt, and I don't know how many times I heard TJ being called JJ during the week. TJ Watt is not going to play. And they need him. They were going to need him if they had any chance to win this. And, you know, Mason Rudolph is not going to go into Buffalo and win. I mean, none of those quarterbacks that the Steelers are going to put out there were going to win in Buffalo. And the Bills are a hot team. I mean, they are the team in the AFC that you really don't want to face. They're at home. There may be snow tomorrow, the Sunday morning, afternoon game. There may be snow in Buffalo. These are teams that can play in the weather. They can. They're tough teams. But the Bills are hot, and they've been playing good football for a long time. This is a game they should win. I mean, if Allen doesn't turn the football over and by throwing multiple interceptions or fumbling or coughing it up, they should win by 20 points. This should almost be a blowout type of game. With all due respect to the Steelers and Mike Tomlin, this is the team that doesn't deserve to be in the playoffs, the Steelers. They really shouldn't be. I mean, I give them credit for playing hard, well coached, but this is the worst team in the playoffs, the Pittsburgh Steelers. Prediction with the score, Bills 31, and I will say it won't be as high scoring because of the cold and the potential snow, but I'll say Bills 31, Steelers 13. If Josh Allen plays a pretty clean game. Otherwise, yeah, it could be a 7 to 10 point game. Afternoon game for us on the West Coast. So Packers, Cowboys, historic matchup. Two franchises, two of the very greatest franchises in NFL history, Super Bowl era history. This is the 9th time they faced each other in the playoffs. And it's 4-4, right down the middle. Packers won 4, Cowboys won 4. And I didn't even say in the Chiefs, I'll back up with the Chiefs and Dolphins game. Because it seems to be so darn cold, I don't think Tyreek Hill's going to have much of an impact. Little different with Mike McCarthy coaching here. And yeah, I meant to say it's not like there isn't pressure on the Cowboys. Sure, there's pressure on the Cowboys. It's just there's more pressure on the 49ers and the Ravens. But there is pressure on the Cowboys in this one. I think that's what makes it a little bit of a dangerous game. And I've been hearing some of the commentators and analysts that I respect even picking the Packers. I don't see that happening. I think the Packers are going to make it an interesting game. I think in the first half, they could keep it close. I think Jordan Love is going to make plays, but this is his first playoff game. And you look at quarterbacks, and sometimes you're just going to say in some of these matchups, who's going to make the mistake? Who's going to make the costly mistake? The Cowboys play very well at home. I argue with those who say they're unbeatable at home. They're not unbeatable at home. They went undefeated at home, but they should have lost to the Lions. I mean, come on. They should have lost to the Lions. And let's be honest, they played weak teams throughout the regular season at home. Jets, Patriots, Giants, Commanders. I mean, these were terrible football teams that they ended up drawing at home. Most of these teams. I mean, name me the great opponent that the Cowboys beat at home. They should have lost to the Lions. The Eagles were absolutely reeling and were a mess when they played in Dallas. Who's the great AFC opponent? Well, they played the Bills and the Dolphins, and they lost on the road to the Bills and the Dolphins. It was the best thing for the Cowboys when they got the division because they get to play at home. When they do play differently, they're more confident, they're on the faster surface, they're in a controlled environment, and I don't know why they can't open up Dallas, why they can't open up the roof. I miss Texas Stadium. I do. I don't think AT&T Stadium's all that. But anyway, okay, getting really into the game. I'm sorry, I get just burned up over Dallas sometimes, and the attention they get. I think their stadium's terribly overrated. And they are not the most important team in the playoffs. Not at all. If they were, they would have had a bye themselves, and they don't. But I do like the Cowboys. I think the Cowboys win this one, but it'll be won in the second half. The Packers have put together a young, talented team, and I question Matt LaFleur. How good of a coach is he without Aaron Rodgers? And he's proven he's a pretty good coach. Jordan Love. I wasn't a fan of Jordan Love's. I didn't think he was going to be this good. He really had a great second half of the season, and the Packers are looking up. And this is going to be a challenging game for the Cowboys. If the Packers can run the ball with some consistency with Jones and Dillon, I'd be worried if I was the Cowboys. The Cowboys are very average against the run with run defense, and Jordan Love is a big play quarterback. I mean, he drives the ball down the field, and he has not been turning the football over much. But as a rookie quarterback, I think he's going to make a mistake or two, meaning a playoff rookie quarterback, his first playoff game. It is a big stage. But the Packers are going to play loose, though. They've got nothing to lose. They really shouldn't even be here. You want to talk about ahead of schedule? Yeah, they're ahead of schedule. They could go in and stun the Cowboys. It is a possibility. I just think it's unlikely. I think, Dak Prescott's going to have a good game at home again against a young football team. I expect CeeDee Lamb to have a good game. The Cowboys will be able to do enough on the ground, and the defense will find a way to force a turnover somewhere. That's an aggressive secondary, and they do get a lot of interceptions. But make no mistake, all the pressure's on the Cowboys here. That's why they have broken in these early rounds. They haven't been able to handle the pressure. And, Dak Prescott has this here we go thing. I think that's just bull, to be honest. Does that work against good defenses on the road? No. You can work in a controlled environment, in a home environment in Dallas. Okay. Cowboys should win. I will say 34-24. Could be 34-27. There's going to be scoring in this one. There's going to be big plays. It's the Fox game, their number one game. I'd say possibly the second most interesting game. The Sunday games, this and then the Lions-Rams, are both fascinating games for me. You have a good playoff rivalry between historic teams like the Cowboys and Packers. That's a good thing. It'd be more interesting than Green Bay, but it's in Dallas, and I do think that home field advantage means a lot for the Cowboys. Being in that controlled environment, being on turf, not having to deal with elements, that was huge for them, getting that second seed. And it should help them advance to the divisional round. Coaching advantage? I don't know. I think LaFleur has proven to be a very good coach, but this is a big game for Mike McCarthy. If the Cowboys make a big mistake or two, hey, Packers could win. But if the Cowboys are as good as they say they are, and if they do take care of their business and defend their home field, Cowboys win. Lions-Rams. Now, I don't want to oversimplify this. It's a big game for these two quarterbacks because they're facing the teams that drafted them. Stafford went on to win a Super Bowl. The Lions finally break through and are division winners. Congratulations to the Lions. I've been saying it for weeks. I believe the Lions are getting knocked out in the first round, and they have weaknesses. And I think their biggest weakness is Jared Goff. You look at the overall numbers, it's pretty good, but Jared Goff is going to throw and make that big mistake at some point. He is. It's coming. And, I don't want to oversimplify and just say, well, it's just a matter of the quarterbacks. Stafford is going to outplay Goff. Dan Campbell's done a very good job, but he's going to get outcoached by McVay. Stafford's going to outplay Goff. The Rams are quietly good on defense. You can't name too many players on the defense outside of Aaron Donald, but then they have a balanced attack on offense too. They have a very good offensive line. They can run the ball with Kyren Williams. They've got Puka Nacua and Cooper Kupp. Rams are dangerous, and the Rams are not supposed to be here. And there's actually more pressure on the Lions. And I like the Rams to win and go in win by a good touchdown. They're not going to run away with the game, most likely, but they could win by 7 to 10 points. I'm going to take the Rams 28-21 to go in and win. And it's unfortunate for the Lions because if this goes the way I predict, they need to take advantage of being good this year because the Packers are coming. And the Packers embarrassed the Lions on Thanksgiving. And it could be as soon as next year the Packers take the division. I would not be surprised at all if the Packers take the division and the Lions are more a wild card team. Because of the difference at quarterback. If Jordan Love continues to play like he does and the Lions continue on with Goff, the Packers are the better team. And then there's no Sam Laporta in this game either. I mean, it's the injuries that affect some of these games. You say, well, we don't even know in the Dolphins-Chiefs if Mostert and Waddle are going to play, go, how effective they're going to be coming off these injuries in freezing conditions. I don't know. But Sam Laporta is a huge part of the Lions offense. I mean, he was Pro Bowl, second team All-Pro. That's a big loss, and just another thing that goes in the favor of the Rams. I like the Rams. And then the final game, this is the game that just doesn't matter, honestly. And can you believe the Eagles? The Eagles were 10-1, and then they go down the stretch and they win one more game and end up 11-6. I can't remember a team like this just falling to pieces and imploding like the Eagles have. I mean, help me out here. What is another team that has just fallen off the rails and gone off the tracks like the Eagles have? Wow. With that, I mean, they were leaking some oil and they were showing some weaknesses before that 49ers loss, but then having that 49ers loss, wow, yeah, it did expose them. And Jalen Hurts, what they've said about him is true. You know, one read, he's really good at making that first initial read. Take that away and then keep him in the pocket. Man, he is not the same. And the problem with the Eagles is they have a lot of good players, but they have holes. They have an offensive line second to none. But defensively, you can run the ball on them. And then they're very weak in the middle of the field. Very weak defensively. They can be attacked, and teams take advantage of that. And then the Buccaneers, they're a team that shouldn't even be in the playoffs, you know. And there's pressure in this game. I mean, there's been talk that Sirianni might even be out because of this collapse of losing not only the first seed, but then losing the second seed, losing the division, and falling all the way to number 5. You know, after going to the Super Bowl last year. The Buccaneers shouldn't even be here. They're hosting the game, and this is a hard game to pick. Because the Eagles hardly can beat anybody right now. The Buccaneers, you know, had their struggles with the Panthers. You know, they defeated the Panthers, but barely defeated the Panthers. I got to think the Eagles are going to find some way to win this, but this is going to be just an ugly game, and it could go either way. I don't feel good about it. I'll just say Eagles 21, Buccaneers 17. Can the Eagles manage to do enough right with the players they have and say, well, we're not going to get beat by the Buccaneers? I don't know. Yeah, I just don't know about this game, and it's clearly the worst game on the slate. And again, to me, an inconsequential game. I mean, whoever wins this game is just going to get knocked out, and they may get blown out potentially in the divisional round. Baker Mayfield, you know, he's had an all right season, all in all. Maybe he does enough to win. I'll go with the Eagles in a close one at home, and then we'll review these games. Let's enjoy these playoff games.